Hello, everyone, and welcome to Domestic Fridays. Here in this podcast, I am your host, Phenomenal Mindy, and today the topic is we're going to talk about physical abuse. Now we're going to kind of identify some things that we're probably seen before or heard before. So this here is something that you want to glide into lightly, very lightly. I'm going to continue on doing this domestic violence. But first, I want to let you know that this month, October, is Domestic Violence Awareness. And with that being said, this month we're going to talk about domestic violence, but we're not going to limit it to, but that's going to be later on. But we've been kind of going over emotional abuse is one of the topics that we went over last week. But this week we're going to go over physical abuse and how you can identify that you are being abused. But first, I want to let you know or should show you and tell you what is physical abuse. Physical abuse involves hitting, touching, or trying to push, shove, or grab, jerk, slap, it hair pulling, whatever it is that is unwanted by the person as the victim, don't want happen to them. So, and it can also be used, in a form of alcohol. It could be form of them giving you drugs to coerce the things that they want to gain power. So with that being said, again, we're gonna kind of go over everything, and we're gonna kind of break it down and dissect. And let me know out there how you feel. Let me know that I leave something off. And in order to do that, what I want you to do is follow me on TikTok, follow me on YouTube at Phenomenal Reflections. That reflection with an S now. Follow me at Phenomenal Reflections on YouTube, and then on TikTok you can follow me at Phenomenal Mindy. Either one of them gonna get back to you. If you don't have any of those social medias, you can also find me on Spotify. Spotify is also listed as Phenomenal Reflections. And you can email me at phenomenalreflections at 2024 at gmail.com. Let me say that one more time. Phenomenal Reflections 2024 at gmail.com. If you have a phone and you want to text me and let me know something that, like I said, I may missed off, you can text me or call me at 901-501-5456. Okay. Now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive in within the physical abuse. And the number one thing I like to tell people to look for, and don't take it lightly, and that is damaging property when they're angry. You know, some people like to throw things, stab things, punch things, break things, whatever it is that they like to do in a form of anger using objects and things. Um, I'm gonna really be honest, and I love to be transparent with you for the people that's out there watching. I grew up watching a sister. Now, this is still up on a physical abuse, but she would chunk things, she would break glass. And what I mean by that, she would go in the cabinet and immediately chunk every time she was angry. So there was a form that I didn't know. And also with a lot of, mental things as well, but that's another topic. But anyway, so she would break things because she's so angry. And I had a neighbor would do the exact same thing. So when I was able to see my sibling and then my neighbor do that, I knew she was very, very violent. And I'm gonna really be honest with y'all. Back then I didn't really know or understand the things. So the things that I would see her do, I feel like now that I could have, you know, reached out to, the local authorities for the guy. But again, I didn't know. I didn't know. I couldn't identify. I just was stuck on the mental part. I didn't know the physical part as well. So, she would do these type of things. She would break TV. She would do all those type of things. But this one particular day, and we all was standing outside, and where I lived at, it was like the country area. And she would get into it, with her husband per usual. It's something that, like I said, I saw all the time. But this particular day, I don't know. I don't know what got in there. So she got so angry, and the adrenaline rush was so high. She got in the car, got behind the wheel, and when I say she bagged back, and when she bagged back, she shot back. So everybody knew then, you better get out of the way. So as I'm standing there looking at her, but I'm on my property, she on her property. So I'm standing there looking at her. She going so fast. He was walking down the street. He was on the outside of the curb. She was on the inside of the curb. So she jumped the car onto the curb to run him over. And literally, when I say it blew my mind, because I would never think, because how cool she was with me. Let me say this. How cool she was with me, and how cool we would sit back and just chill. I never thought or anything came to mind that, hey, she would be violent. I knew the rage, but again, I just didn't know. I didn't know, and I didn't understand. So after that, I began to identify, even within my own parents. I began to identify the slapping and the pushing, the kicking, and I don't think he ever choked her. If he did, I didn't see it. So those were the things that my father would do. And don't get me wrong, I never could understand it. And he's gone on. So there's no reason, I'll be able to get that answer from it at this particular moment. But I began to see certain things. And this is for me, when I knew that my mom was an emotional abuser. I knew without a shadow of a doubt my mom was the emotional abuser. Now, for me, it stemmed from the domestic violence that her and my father had. This particular time, and I'm going to tell you this story. This particular time, I had to be probably, I'm going to give you the range because I can't quite remember the age. Um, it was between the age of 5 and 7. This particular day, I don't know what went on or whatever. My father came home, and my mom had, I don't can't remember if she cooked dinner or was headed to cook dinner or whatever, but that was the mission. That was the goal. So after that, she him and her begin to have verbal, conversations going back and forth. Can't quite remember what they were saying to each other. Again, this is like a decade ago. So I began to, listen to them. When you're a kid, you don't know what's going on. You're looking at mom, you're looking at dad, you're looking at mom, looking at dad. You're trying to figure out what is going on. But you looking at both of them trying to figure out what's gonna happen. You don't know what you're gonna do because again, you that young, you don't know what's going on. None of this. So anyway, my mom, my dad, they begin to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. My mom, all I knew that my mom picked up a rolling pin. And when I say a rolling pin, I'm talking about the ones that you use to make dough with. And it was one of them wood ones. So my mom picked up that with the combination of a skillet. I'm talking about a cast iron skillet. So she got one in one hand, she got one in the other hand. So I'm standing there looking like, what is really, really, really going on? Are they really finna get the fight? So all I remember my mom swinging first. And when my mom began to swing first, my dad tried to take it out of her hand. He did. But then she proceeded to get even more violent. And I don't know, like I say, is this was something that was been happening, or at this particular moment now the children are able to see what's going on. Because if they were fighting, they was fighting in the room. And so I didn't see anything until this particular day that I will never forget. So my mom, I can hear her say stuff about my dad abandoning her, leaving her there. And my mom was actually in Mississippi, and my dad was in Mississippi as well. But my mom, uh, basically, my dad really saved my mom from the home she was in. Not to say that anything was going on in my grandparents' home on my mom's side. No, my mom wasn't married yet. So let me take that back. She was married, but she was trying to get a divorce from her first husband, which is my sister's father. So my dad ended up come and save her because my mom was abused, from what I was told, by her first husband as well, which is my sister's father. So I don't know if that built up anger. Now that I really think about it and we actually sharing this, I don't know if that was something that built up within her. But again, so being abused and I guess going into a second relationship, I guess my mother had to think, well, I'm not gonna let this happen to me again. Or it could have been my father raised his voice and took that um my mom took that of him saying to her that this is about to go violent. She took that as a trigger. And so my dad tried to take the things out her hands and he wasn't able to do that. And she was just getting really, really violent. So for me, that was my first visual of domestic violence. And then my mom, she couldn't really drive or anything like that, so it wasn't nowhere for her to go. Again, like my mom felt like that moving up here to Memphis that my dad rescued her. So, um, my dad never physically abused us, or my mom, she never physically abused us. She just abused us emotionally. So, with that being said, I was able to identify. So starting this podcast, it was something that I really, really wanted to do because I wanted people to be aware. I wanted people to know and understand things that they can do to position themselves for their children won't be affected by those things. And I do like the idea if you as a parent having a disagreement that something should be done in the room. It shouldn't be done in front of the kids, and even later it shouldn't be talked about to the children as they growing up. That's something you just shouldn't do. So with that being said, everything far as domestic violence, things can be coerced. They could be threatening. And even with my own personal thing, I had a husband. I was married in 2013, and it lasted for about 8 to 9 years. Now, most of those years were great. I can really say they were great. But it was always, like my grandmother said, a fool gonna always be a fool. So here's my story, is what I'm gonna tell you. Here's my story, and I'm gonna break it down and be transparent and honest with you. So after being married for 8 or 9 years, throughout those years, I would hear certain stories. Now, don't get me wrong. My husband had been to prison, and husband went to prison at the time for domestic. It wasn't, well. You could say it was domestic violence, but the charges. Let me say this: the charges were attempted homicide and arson. So meeting his people, they began to tell me, listen to me clearly. Listen to me clearly. People began to tell me about him being abused by him being abusing the women that was before me, which was the child mother and the last girlfriend that he had. So they began to tell me stories and I began to listen. But what was strange and ironic to me is I didn't see none of that. I didn't see none of that. But I would hear what they say and take notes and put that within my mind. But I didn't see that. So here's what people say. Well, oh, you can't go by what nobody else say. People be trying to tell you stuff because they don't want you to be with that certain person or they don't want you to kick it with that certain person. For me, I don't if he done it to one, two, three, I don't need to wait around for it to happen to me. That's just me, because that's already three signs. that's in front of you and telling you what's really going on, and you thinking that it won't happen to you, then you be the fool. So I proceeded to hear these stories, and then I said, well, let me just check. Let me just check his record. Let me check his record. So I pulled his record. It was after we were married. So I began to pull his record. When I pull his record, y'all, I'm going, boy, it was so much. Don't get me wrong. He told me certain things, but he didn't expound on the things that happened. I knew about the charges. Yes, I did. But he didn't expound on anything, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was in love with him. So, again, I didn't see that, so I wasn't paying attention to none of that. I'm just gonna really be honest, and that's what most of us do. It's not happened to me at this particular moment. That was before me. Maybe he'll change person. As they say, a leopard never changed his spot. So then I looked at the charts and I said, "Well, wait a minute." I said, "Now it's time for confronting time because what is all this?" So as I began to look at the charges and looked at the depth of the charges, I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it. So the charges again was attempted homicide and it was arson. So as I began to read the paper and the findings that I did find, I found out that he had the guy that he had beat up was split from here to here. The guy had several stitches. And when I say them the paper, he beat that man to the white meat, that's what he did to the white meat. I mean, left it open. And the guy did testify against him in court, all that finding. And then he also, within those findings, this is what he never told me, is that he after okay, him and his sister, with him and his sister boyfriend, got into an altercation. So within that altercation, the sister jumps up. Now he's, you know, going at the guy for beating on his sister. This is crazy. So he going at the guy for beating on his sister and for just talking crazy, all of this. So as he began to fight with the guy, the sister began to jump in it. And when she jumped in, she caught them legs. So she at this particular time, she thinking like, this fool crazy. What's really going on with him? So this all of this in the paperwork now. This is what I'm reading. So as he began to jump on her, he realized, okay, let me just let her alone. So with the guy, I'm not gonna lie, my ex-husband was drinking. And I always knew that he loved to drink and it beer. And so and alcohol too. Let me say that. And he liked to drink that bumpy face. He loved him some bumpy face. So he drinking, he done blacked out. And if you any men listening know what I'm saying about this blackout, you know what I mean. So when I asked him, I was like, what was going on through your mind? Because when I say he beat the guy really bad, he beat the guy so bad, the guy had to have a halo on. This is really serious, y'all. So the guy is showing all of this in court. I'm again, this is all of this on the paperwork. So I asked him, what were you thinking? What were you going through? Like what were you? I just couldn't imagine beating that guy a guy that bad, but he told me that he was drunk and he blacked out. He just blacked out, and when he hit the guy with the 2x4 is what he was hitting him with. He just even out the blood, he just was still hitting him. He just was still hitting him. So then I begin to fall back, like, what's really going on? What's really going on? I don't know what's going on. So by then I'm so angry at him because I'm like, this is not nothing that you disclosed in the beginning. This is not nothing that you told me. So again, he was like, well, my love, I'm sorry. He was like, but that's what happened. And he didn't want me, I'm assuming he didn't want me to know. I'm not gonna say I'm assuming, yeah, I knew because I didn't know. So he didn't want me to know what was going on. And after he began to to beat the guy, then the sister called a lick. Then he got so mad. This is how the arson in charge came in. He got so mad. By then his adrenaline is through the roof. He got so mad too. He one of those little cheap Family Dollar rug. One of those was on the outside of the door, and he went and got gasoline from the lawnmower that was on the side, and began to, wet it all up with gas. And when he did it, he threw the match on. So then I don't know what made him stop and said that seen that he was going too far. So after that, he began to take off. He called his girlfriend. She came and picked him up. She even got a charge as well. And she got a charge, but luckily she was able to, I think, get off of probation. All of this again is in the paperwork. So he began to run. He like, if y'all gonna find me, I'm gonna make y'all do y'all job. If y'all wants to find me, I'm gonna make y'all do y'all job. And so then after that, they begin to find him or whatever, whatever. So he served his time for that. So I said all that to say that that's something that happened prior. These are the type of things that you have to look for. So as I begin to, like I said, we was married for about 8 or 9 years, and one particular day he always had a problem with drinking. I didn't care for him drinking. That was another thing that was a turnout for me, and that was another thing that causes the divorce. That wasn't, all of it, but that was one of the things. When he would get drunk, he would like to listen to music. That began the spiraling. So he began to get the male privileges, far as I'm the man, you know. So he would never say that to me, but his body language did. So I began to start paying attention. And this one particular day, I began to get up and go to the back room. He has this thing that when he was off on Saturdays, he will always wash the car. He would always, fill my car up. He would always do those kind of things as a husband. Definitely. But after that happened, then this one particular day, he I began to walk to the room. When I got to the room, he got so angry. He got so angry because I wouldn't when he gets like this, I ignore him. So this, I'm gonna tell you something. Ignoring somebody can bring so much anger in them. You again, these are signs. So I get to the room, and by this time, I'm wondering, I can hear him come down the hall like, what is he about to be on today? You like, I ain't got time for it today. I ain't feeling this today. Go on. I ain't ready. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it. So then I proceeded to go, down the hallway and into the room, and he begins to enter into the room. And for me, at this particular moment, I was carrying a child. And at this particular moment, I knew he was about to be on something. So my oldest son was in his room, and he began to yell dad. So he didn't have anything in his arm or anything in his hand. But when he came up to me, again, I was pregnant. He was behind me, and he began to push me. And when he pushed me, I embraced myself on the bed immediately. Again, because at that particular time, I think I was probably like 6 or 7 months pregnant. So I began to brace myself because I knew I was pregnant and I didn't want to fall on my stomach. So I caught the bed. When I caught the bed, I turned around and my reflex swung. And when I tell you, I slapped him on the side of his ear, like his neck, and I guess that must have really pissed him off. I mean, I guess it pissed him off bad. So I'm like, cussing, like what the MF wrong with you? What are you doing? And then he can talk about, oh, you don't want to hear nothing I'm saying. You don't want to talk to me, and I'm not entertaining it. And again, these are signs. And so it gotten so bad when I fell on the bed and embracing myself, and he began to pull me backwards. By then, I'm like, okay, what do I do? So by then we tussling, and he never used his fist or anything. It just was that. And when I yelled out, "What are you doing? I'm pregnant." And my son, my oldest son, at the same time yelled out, "Mom, I mean, Dad, get off, Mom." And when he said that, it was like, you know, he froze. He was like, All right, all right, I know what I'm doing. I'm effing up. I'm effing up right now." So he left, went on by his business. I done let him back in. And then he began to, with the crying and all of that. I'm not hearing it. I'm not studying it. And I knew at that moment, even though that was a little bit for me, I still am a victim. Let me just say that I still am a victim because it could have gotten worse. It could have got ugly. It could have got out of control. It could have got out of hand. And somebody would have been dead. 'Cause like I said, I just didn't want to deal with him with all of that. You know, so I knew once he drink again, what's gonna happen. Like really, what's really gonna happen? But let me finish this before the end of this podcast. We only got like 3 more minutes left. So this was another thing he would do: drive reckless. He would never drive my car because I a fool. No, but when he got his funds up and he got him a car, he only gonna have the car I say about a month and wreck. But that's him violently, violently. And I'm gonna tell you what really happened. When he drove that car where we was living at the time in Arkansas, he was drunk. He was driving so bad, and then I'm gonna tell you this is how the universe works. A fool gonna be a fool. He was driving so fast to he hit a oncoming truck, a F-150, and the person that he hit happens to be the judge of Arkansas' son. Man, when I tell you, for me, that none of that had nothing to do with me. You gonna have to worry about the time, your money, your restitution, all of that. Get you a lawyer. I'm not fooling with none of that. So I didn't. So he didn't know at the time that's who he hit. So the judge of that county could not be over the case because of a conflict. But everybody knew you hit the judge's son. So you're gonna have to pay. You really gonna have to pay. And y'all, I'm really telling you this is how it goes. Just pay attention to the signs. Don't ignore it. Don't think it won't happen to you. Don't think, oh, because they never did it this time. Oh, but I have seen them arguing and get a little rowdy, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you've seen that. But then you gonna say, oh, you don't know what a person may do. You don't know what's on their mind. You know how they say a person gets so mad and they'll snap. So you don't know. You don't know. So you have to pay attention to all of this. It's in front of you, but you just have to pay attention. Don't be ashamed. And if it is what it is, then go ahead and remove yourself immediately. You know what I mean? So this is the end of the podcast. I am your host, Phenomenal Mindy. If you are going through domestic violence, please give the hotline a number one a call, 1-800-799-7233. Again, the national number for the domestic hotline is 1-800-799-7233. And if you want to call me, my number is 901-501-5456. I do not, by all means, have any housing for any domestic violence recipients, or nor do I have anywhere to place you. I don't know if that's something that my ancestors are putting before me because it's the second time I said that. So I don't know what are they doing, but whatever they're here to tell me to do through the universe, I'm able to do it, and I want them to use me as a vessel. And awareness month is this month, and the color is purple. And it also started back in October of 1981, which they designed it as a day of unity. And it's something that needs to be put forward for the ladies and the men's. The men's are not excluded because there's some women's out here who are abusers too. So everything that I've said, it can go either way. It doesn't matter which one or who. It can be woman, woman, man, man. It doesn't matter. It can go either way. But thank you for listening and watching me. And this is the end of the show. See you on the next episode.